The morning begins in darkness. The alarm rings at 5:30. Elena turns it off with a single movement before the sound breaks the silence in which Mark sleeps next to her. He tosses and turns, muttering something in his sleep. She freezes, holding her breath, until his breathing becomes even again. She slips out of bed and goes to the bathroom. She turns on the light only when the door is closed. The bright light from the lamp is merciless. She sees her face, a blue-yellow spot on her right cheekbone, a deep shadow under the same eye. It's not as bright as it was 3 days ago, but it's still noticeable. Very noticeable. Bonsikso. She opens her makeup bag. Foundation, concealer, dense powder. Her movements are precise, automatic. The brush gently touches the skin, layer after layer. She knows how to press, where to add more yellow corrector to neutralize blueness. It's become a science, the science of concealment. 15 minutes later, a different person looks in the mirror. Her skin is smooth, flawless. Only she knows what's underneath that perfect layer. She combs her black hair and gathers it into a tight ponytail. She puts on a prim white blouse and a black skirt. Clothes are just another part of the uniform of normalcy. She's silent at breakfast. Mark reads the news on his phone. He puts his hand on her shoulder. "Did you sleep well, darling?" His voice is soft, caring. She smiles without looking at him. "Fine. Thank you." His hand on her shoulder feels heavy. He doesn't think about that evening. And she doesn't. That's how they live. Corso Hotel is her turf. Here she is, Elena Clark, a quiet and efficient accountant. Everyone knows her place. A small office behind the reception desk, filled with folders, and the quiet hum of a computer. This morning, the air in the hotel vibrates with a different tension. Mrs. Clark, the manager, is holding a staff meeting. She stands up straight, her voice ringing. "Jong Ho Lee is visiting us today," she says. "He's our #1 VIP client. His every request, his every whim, is law. No mistakes, no lateness. I want only flawless work." Everyone nods. The maids straighten their aprons. The receptionists check their ties. Elena stands slightly to the side. She doesn't have to interact with the guests. It's one of the reasons she loves this job. She's an invisible machine. At noon, she goes out into the main foyer to hand over a folder of reports to the receptionist. Just then, the main doors open. He enters. He's not alone. He's with two men who look less like guards than like shadows. He's young. She looks no more than 30. His black hair is neatly combed back. He's wearing a perfectly tailored dark gray suit. No tie. He doesn't look around, doesn't smile. He simply stares ahead, his gaze sweeping quickly, like a scanner, across the reception desk, the faces of the staff, and the space of the foyer. His gaze glides over her for a split second. It pauses, fixates, not on her face, but as a whole, like an object in a room, cold, assessing. There's no warmth or curiosity in it, only calculation. And then the gaze disappears. He nods something to his assistant and moves toward the elevator. His group follows him without further ado. Elena freezes, holding the folder. A chill runs down her spine. She suddenly realizes how fragile her perfect facade is. One such look, attentive and cold, can reveal the cracks. She quickly returns to her office. She needs to calm down. This is just an important client. He will be leaving in a few days. She just needs to wait it out. The day drags on. His head starts to ache after lunch. Too much screen time, too many numbers, and the constant subconscious tension from knowing he's here, at the hotel, in his suite on the top floor. Elena decides to wash up. Cold water will help. She goes to the small staff restroom at the far end of the hallway. It's usually empty at this hour. She goes inside. Silence. She turns to the mirror and turns on the water. She takes a paper towel, wets it, and gently presses it to her temples. She closes her eyes. For a second, she feels better. She turns on the faucet, leans over, and begins washing off her makeup. The water is cool, invigorating. She runs her hands over her face, washing away foundation, powder, and concealer. She opens her eyes and sees her true face in the mirror, tired, with dark circles, and with those very marks, yellow and unfair, on her cheekbone. At this moment, the restroom door opens. She didn't hear the footsteps. She simply saw in the mirror a figure appear in the doorway. This is him, Jung Ho Lee. He looks directly at her reflection in the mirror. His gaze, as sharp and quick as it had been this morning, is now completely on her. He sees everything. The bruise, the yellow stain, the fear in her wide-open eyes. She can't move, can't cover her face. She's simply frozen, her hands wet and drops of water on her skin. Time stops. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't look away. He just looks, first at the bruise, and then straight into her eyes. It's not curiosity. It's something else. Attention. A deep, silent fixation on a fact. Then, just as silently, he takes a step back. He grabs the door handle. Slowly, almost silently, he closes the door in front of him. The click of the lock sounds like a gunshot. Elena continues to stare into the mirror. Her breath hitches. Her heart pounds so loudly, it seems to echo throughout the tiled room. He saw everything. Her mind starts racing. He'll call the manager now. He'll complain. He'll say there's an employee at the hotel who looks suspicious. They'll call her into the office. They'll start asking questions. "Ms. Clark, what's that on your face?" They'll think bad things. Scandals. The police. VIPs don't tolerate trouble. Mark. What will Mark say if she gets fired? If the police come, panic rises in her throat. She clutches the sink to steady herself. She needs to restore the facade. Now. She frantically opens her purse and takes out her makeup bag. Her hands are shaking. The concealer goes on unevenly. She rubs it in with her fingers, but her nervousness only makes it worse. She rinses it off, tries to breathe deeply. "Calm down, Elaine, calm down." 10 minutes later, she emerges from the restroom. Her face is once again covered in makeup, but inside, everything is upside down. She returns to her office, expecting the phone to ring at any moment, for her name to be announced over the intercom. Every minute feels like an hour, but there's no call. An hour passes, 2. The workday ends. Nothing happens. This is weird. This is even worse. Why didn't he say anything? Maybe he just didn't pay attention? Maybe he doesn't care? Or is he up to something? She's getting ready to go home, completely confused. The fear doesn't go away. It becomes a constant, echoing background noise. The next morning, Elaine arrives at work before everyone else. She was afraid that her resignation notice would already be on her desk. But there are only ordinary papers on the desk. She tries to immerse herself in her work, but she can't concentrate. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, Mrs. Clark knocks on her office door. Elena jumps. Quote 0, the manager says, her voice betraying its usual sternness, now tinged with mild confusion. Quote 1. Elena looks at her, confused. Mrs. Clark leaves, leaving Elaine completely confused. This isn't just strange. It's illogical. He saw her bruise, and now he's specifically asking her to do his work. Is this some kind of game? Humiliation? Or a test? She feels like a fly caught in a web she can't yet see. The instructions arrive an hour later. His assistant, a young Korean man with glasses, brings a folder of documents. Mr. L asks you to bring the initial report today at 4 o'clock to Suite 401. He'll ask a few questions. At 4, to his room. Elena nods, unable to speak. At precisely 4 o'clock, she stands in front of the door to Suite 401, holding a folder and a laptop. She takes a deep breath and knocks. The same assistant opens the door. He silently lets her in. The suite is huge and almost empty. Minimalistic furniture, huge windows overlooking the city. Jong Ho-ol is sitting at a formal table by the window. He's not wearing a jacket, only a white shirt with the top button undone. He's staring at his tablet. Quote 0, he says without looking at her. His voice is even, calm, and unaccented. She sits down on the chair opposite. She places the folder on the table. Quote 1, quote 2. She begins explaining the figures and the cost structure. He asks questions, specific, precise, and to the point. The tax percentage, the rationale for this or that fee, the reporting format. He's a professional to the core, but she feels his gaze. When she speaks, he looks not at the papers, but at her. At her hands, which tremble slightly as she turns the pages. At her face, when she lowers her eyes to find the right line. He watches, always watches, but not as a man, but as a researcher, as if trying to read something between the lines, something that isn't there in these numbers. Quote 3, he says suddenly, interrupting her story about travel expenses. Quote 4, it's not a work question, it's a personal comment. She's flustered. I'm trying to make sure everything is clear. He nods and returns to the numbers. The meeting lasts 20 minutes. He thanks her and says he expects the next report tomorrow. Everything is formal, polite, but when she leaves, she's left feeling like she's been X-rayed. He saw more than just the report. He studied her. The next day, Elena spots Jung-ho's assistant, the same one, in the hallway near the reception desk. He's talking to the receptionist, Jessica. They're laughing. Elena hears snatches of their conversation. Yeah, it must be hard to work so much alone, says the assistant, his voice friendly. Quote 0. Elena pauses outside her office door. They're talking about her. Assistant Jung-ho casually asks about her routine, about her route. Why? Why does he need this? She doesn't come out until the assistant leaves. Her heart starts pounding again. The game becomes even stranger and more frightening. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Elena leaves the hotel. She usually walks 2 streets and then takes the bus. Today, she's especially nervous. Her assistant's conversation is spinning in her head. On the first street, she turns around. Ordinary people are following her, nothing suspicious. She turns onto Elm Street. It's quieter here, and then she hears the soft hum of an engine. Very quiet, but smooth. She slows down. The car behind her slows down too. She stops, pretending to search for something in her bag. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees it. A big black sedan. Expensive, with tinted windows. It's parked 10 meters behind, on the side of the road. Her breath catches. She walks quickly, almost running. The engine noise resumes. The car follows her, keeping its distance. It's not her imagination. They're coming for her. She reaches her bus stop. A black sedan drives past without stopping. All she sees is the dark window and the reflection of her own frightened face. The bus pulls up. She jumps on and sinks into the seat, her whole body shaking. Through the window, she sees the black sedan parked at the next intersection. It's not moving. It's just standing there, waiting. The car turns and slowly disappears into the evening traffic. She doesn't know what it means. But she knows one thing. This isn't the end. This is only the beginning. Elena gets off the bus at her stop. She looks around. The street is deserted, no black cars in sight. She practically runs toward her house, a small old building divided into 4 apartments. Theirs is on the ground floor. She opens the door with her key. The light is on in the living room. The TV plays quietly in the background. The smell of fried chicken wafts from the kitchen. Quote, _0. Mark comes out of the kitchen. He's wearing an apron. He's smiling. His face is kind, open. He comes over to hug her. She pauses for a split second. Before returning the hug, his arms wrap around her. One hand pats her back. How was your day, darling? I'm fine, she says, her voice sounding a little strained. I'm tired. I'm making your favorite sauce, he says, letting go of her and returning to the stove. Go get changed. It'll be ready soon. She goes into the bedroom. The door closes with a soft click. She leans against it and closes her eyes. It's an ordinary evening. Mark is cooking dinner. He's sweet. He's caring. Everything is as usual. But in her head, the black car still lingers, and Chung-ho's cold gaze in the mirror. She changes into lounge clothes. When she returns to the kitchen, Mark is setting the plates on the table. He talks about his day, about a colleague who irritated him. He laughs. She nods, pretending to listen. During dinner, he suddenly reaches across the table for salt. His hand moves quickly, unexpectedly. Elaine instinctively flinches and pulls away. A small movement, almost imperceptible. Mark stops. He looks at her, his eyebrows raised slightly. Everything okay? Yes, of course. She smiles quickly. I was just thinking. He looks at her for another second, then returns to his food. He continues his story. But the atmosphere in the room is slightly different now. A tenseness as thin as a web. Later, they watch TV. His hand rests on her knee. His touch is warm, heavy. She wants to move her leg, but doesn't. She sits motionless until it's time to go to bed. Morning. She wakes up before the alarm. Mark is asleep, his back to her. She carefully gets out of bed and goes to the bathroom. She turns on the light and raises her hand to fix her hair, and sees him. A fresh bruise. A distinct blue-purple mark on the inside of her left forearm. The shape resembles a fingerprint. She doesn't remember how it happened. There was no pain last night. She touches her skin. It hurts. She closes her eyes, trying to remember. Dinner. TV, Mark. Did he take her hand as they walked to the bedroom? Did he hold her too tightly? She doesn't remember. She remembers little at all from the evening, except her fear. She looks at the bruise. It speaks for itself, but she doesn't want to hear it. I just turned around awkwardly, she whispers to her reflection. I must have hit the closet door, or the sink. She repeats this to herself like a mantra while applying makeup. The foundation doesn't adhere well to her arm, but she pulls the sleeve of her blouse up. It almost completely hides the mark. Almost. At the office, she constantly feels that spot under the fabric. A dull, almost throbbing ache. Every time she moves her hand, the pain whispers, quote, 2. In the middle of the day, she finishes another report for Young Shuo Ho. She carries it to the suite. She knocks. The door is opened by an assistant. Young I-ho is standing by the large window, his back to the door, talking on the phone in Korean. His voice is quiet, even. The assistant gestures for her to enter and points to the desk. She puts down the folder, trying not to make any noise. She wants to leave as quickly as possible. At that moment, Young Ho ends the call. He puts the phone in his pocket and turns around. He doesn't look at her. He looks at his assistant. They stand a few steps away from her. Jung Ho says something quietly, almost in a whisper, to the assistant. But in the silence of the room, she hears a clear question in English. Just 3 words. Any information? The assistant shakes his head slightly. Not yet? Jung Ho glances briefly at Elena. Their eyes meet for a split second. There's no warmth or cruelty in his gaze, only a cold statement of fact. She's here, she heard it. He looks at the assistant again. Go on. Elena nods quickly, awkwardly, and almost runs out of the room, her heart pounding. Is there information? About what? About her? About Mark? About the black car? Someone is gathering information, and he, Young Ho, is waiting for it. She feels trapped in a glass cage. She's being watched. Data is being collected on her, and she doesn't understand the rules of this game. After lunch, Elaine returns to her office after her break. On her desk, right next to her keyboard, lies a small box. It's glossy, black, and logoless. A small square of white paper is folded next to it. She looks around. The corridor is empty. She takes the note. Quote 3. Her fingers grow cold. She opens the box. Inside, on black velvet, lies a bottle of concealer. Expensive, professional, the perfect shade for her skin tone. The perfect shade. This is not a random gift. It is a message, direct and frightening. Quote 4. Someone was in her office. Someone left this. His assistant, or himself. Maybe he passed by while she was on break. Horror envelops her. Elaine grabs the box and the note. Her first thought is to get rid of it. Now. She runs out into the hallway and practically runs to the women's restroom. She enters the stall and locks the door. With trembling hands, she tears the note into tiny pieces and flushes it down the toilet. Then she looks at the bottle. She wants to flush that too, but that will clog it. She opens her bag, wraps the bottle in tissues, and hides it at the very bottom. She'll go out and throw it in a street trash can, far away from the hotel. She washes her hands, looks at her face in the mirror. It's pale, her eyes wide with fear. It's a mockery, a humiliating, cruel mockery. He's seen her weakness, and now he's toying with it. He's showing that he's in control, that he can enter her space and leave such quote, _0_, or is it a trap? Maybe there's a camera somewhere? Maybe he's waiting to see how she reacts? Maybe he wants to see her panic? She leaves the restroom feeling dirty. She throws the bottle into a trash can on the nearby street, but the feeling doesn't go away. The feeling of being watched haunts her for the rest of the day. The next day, she is called back to Suite 401. Elaine goes there feeling like she is going to an execution. Jung Ho is alone. He's sitting at a table with a stack of old folders and boxes in front of him. He points at them. Miss Clark, I have a business proposition for you, he says without preamble. I need to organize my personal archives for the last few years. Documents, invoices, old contracts. The work is meticulous, requiring attention and precision, just like I've seen in your work. He pauses, looking at her directly. I suggest you do this after your regular duties, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. The pay will be 3 times your hourly rate at the hotel. All work will take place here, in your room. You will report only to me. Elena is silent. Her brain refuses to process the information. Money. Really good money. In 2 hours a day, she can save up for her own escape, for a new apartment, for freedom. But there's a price. Working here, with him, in a confined space, under his supervision, after the gift, after everything that happened. Why me? She blurts out. Because you're not a chatterbox, quote 1, and because you do your job well. I need a professional, that's all. He doesn't mention the bruise. He doesn't mention the concealer. He only talks about work. But the sentence hangs in the air between them, heavy and layered. Elena spends the entire evening in agony. She sits in the kitchen, drinking tea that has already gone cold. Mark watches football in the living room. Money! The thought haunts her. With that kind of money, she could rent a room, even a small studio. She could leave. She wouldn't have to wait months, saving up a pittance. But fear of Jung-ho. Who is he? What does he want? Is this offer a lifeline or a more sophisticated trap? Maybe he wants to lure her into trust? Use her? Or worse, maybe he's just like Mark, just in a different package. She looks at the living room door. The announcer's shouts can be heard from there. Mark laughs. An ordinary evening. An ordinary guy. She raises her arm and gently touches the bruise under her sleeve. The pain is muted, but real. She remembers the black car. The question? Any information? They're gathering it. They're watching her. But who? And why? If he wanted to harm her, he already had the opportunity. Complain. Fire her. Call the police. But he didn't. He gave her a job. A very well-paid job. Maybe it's just business? Maybe she was just incredibly lucky? Or is this the biggest mistake of her life? In the morning, when she enters her office, a blank contract is already on her desk. Everything is clearly stated. Hours, pay, confidentiality terms. Chung-ho's signature is already there. Elena picks up the pen. She feels her fingers tremble. She looks at the contract, at the neat lines. This could be a ticket to freedom, or a pass to hell. She remembers her fear in the black car. She remembers the cold eyes in the mirror. She remembers Mark's heavy hand on her knee. She exhales and signs her name. Work begins the next day. At precisely 6 o'clock in the evening, Elena knocks on the door of her suite. An assistant opens the door and silently points to a corner of the room. There, by the window, is another desk. On it, neatly stacked, are folders, boxes of papers, a ring binder, and labels. Jung-ho sits at his desk, working on his laptop. He nods to her in greeting, but doesn't look away. The assistant leaves. The room is perfectly tidy. Everything is in its place. The air is cool and smells of cleanliness and expensive paper. The silence is broken only by the soft click of her keyboard and the rustle of pages. Elena begins sorting through documents. They are invoices, old contracts for some supplies, technical specifications. Everything is dry and impersonal. She immerses herself in the monotony of the work. It is calming. Here, in this quiet room, under his silent presence, she feels a strange safety. He simply works. And she works. In one of the old cardboard boxes, she finds a folder of clippings. Not business-related, but rather personal. She's about to put it aside when her gaze falls on a yellowed sheet of newspaper. It's an article from a Korean newspaper, but with an English caption underneath the photograph. The photo shows an elegant, elderly woman and a young man who bears a striking resemblance to Chung-ho, only about 20 years younger. They are standing at the entrance to a building. The caption, in English, reads, "The Chung family opens the New Dawn Foundation to help people in crisis." Elena slowly reads the caption. The foundation provides legal assistance, temporary housing, and support to those in difficult circumstances, especially women and children. The founders are the Chan family. She looks at the photo, then steals a glance at Jung-ho. He's still focused on the screen. A charity, crisis assistance. It doesn't fit with the image she had of a cold-blooded mafia businessman. Nothing fits. She carefully puts the clipping back and continues working. But now a new question is spinning in her head. Elena has a day off on Saturday. She decides to take a walk to the park to get some fresh air and clear her head. The day is sunny and cool. She sits down on her usual bench near a small pond. Then she notices a familiar figure on the adjacent lawn. Jung-ho, but not the Jung-ho she knows. He's wearing simple dark jeans, a gray hoodie, and sneakers. He's holding a bag. He takes something out of it and throws it on the ground. 3 stray dogs flock to him, wary, with their tails between their legs. He doesn't try to pet them. He simply stands there and tosses them food. Pieces of some kind of sausage, bread. His face in profile seems calm, even detached. He looks at the dogs, and there's no disgust or sentimentality in his gaze. There's something like quiet understanding. One of the dogs, the smallest and most timid, is afraid to approach. Chanto-ipo takes a few steps back and tosses her a piece of food closer. The dog finally grabs the food and runs away. Elena watches, holding her breath. This man, who makes the entire hotel tense with a single glance, who conducts business with glacial efficiency, stands here feeding stray animals. It looks so unnatural, so out of place, that it makes her dizzy. She quietly gets up and leaves before he notices her. The image of a man with a bag of dog food now lives in her mind alongside the image of a man in a perfect suit. Working with the archives becomes a regular occurrence. Elena stays at the hotel until 8, sometimes until 9 in the evening. The money accumulates. She already has a small sum hidden in a book at work. Thoughts of escape become more and more real. At first, Mark was calm about her delays, but then he started asking questions. "What kind of job is this that keeps you up until midnight every day?" he asks over dinner on Thursday. His voice is even, but there's a metallic edge to it. Quote 1. "One," she replies, not looking at him. Quote 2. He puts down his plate. The clatter of dishes makes her jump. Quote 3. Quote 4. Mark stands up and walks over to her chair. He looms over her. Quote 5. His breath smells of beer. Elaine cringes, but lifts her head and looks him straight in the eyes. For the first time in months, she doesn't immediately look away. She sees neither love nor care in his eyes. She sees anger and control, and fear of losing that control. "He tells me to check the numbers," she says quietly but clearly, "and sign the documents. That's all." Mark stares at her for a few more seconds, his jaw tense. Then he chuckles, turns away, and goes to the fridge for another beer. The threat seemed to have passed, but that evening, lying in bed, Elena understands. She can't stand this anymore. Not even a day longer. Her fear of Mark at that moment overcame even her fear of the unknown with Young Ho. She knows what awaits her here, with Mark, and there. At least a chance. At the next meeting in the suite, the atmosphere is different. Young Ho finished work early. He sits in a chair by the window, looking out over the city. His assistant is absent. Elena finishes describing another box. The room is quiet. She feels his gaze on her. "Miss Clark," he says suddenly. His voice breaks the silence, making her flinch. She turns around. "Yes?" He looks at her, his face expressionless. "Are you safe at home?" The question hangs in the air, direct, cruel in its simplicity. It doesn't ask quote 3 or quote 4. It asks about the result, about the fact. Elena freezes. Every instinct screams at her to lie, to say yes, to smile, to pretend everything is fine. This is what she always did, with Mrs. Clark, with her colleagues, with herself. But she remembers Mark's look at dinner. She remembers the weight of his hand. She remembers the bruise on her hand, the origin of which she still can't remember. Young Ho's cold, expressionless eyes, and she realizes he already knows the answer. He's just waiting for her to say it out loud, for it to be her choice. She slowly, almost imperceptibly, shakes her head. "No," once, from side to side. He holds her gaze for a few seconds, then he nods just as slowly. He has accepted the answer. Sheng Ho looks away and back out the window. He speaks calmly, as if discussing a meeting schedule. "Tomorrow, same time. Be here, with your things. Only the essentials. What you can carry discreetly." Elaine is not breathing. "If you decide," he adds, still not looking at her, "the decision must be yours. If you come, we will help. If not, the work on the archives will be considered complete." He stands up, signaling the end of the conversation. She automatically gathers her things, her hands shaking. She leaves the room without saying a word. The plan. It's the plan. Tomorrow. She has 24 hours to make a decision. Run away, come here, trust him, or stay, and lose this chance, possibly forever. The night seems endless. Mark is fast asleep after an evening with friends. Elena lies next to him, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. She gets up around 3 in the morning. She tiptoes to the closet. She'd already secretly prepared an old gym bag earlier in the day. Now she packs it with the bare minimum: 2 pairs of casual clothes, underwear, and toiletries. Her passport and the little money she'd managed to save are already in the pocket of her work bag. Every sound seems deafening to her: the rustle of fabric, the click of a clasp. She stops and freezes every time Mark tosses and turns in his sleep. The bag is packed. It's standing by the door to the hallway. One step, just one step to grab it and leave right now. But her legs won't obey her. Fear paralyzes her. Fear of Mark if he wakes up. Fear of the unknown with Young Ho. Fear that she's got it all wrong. That this is a trap. That something worse awaits her tomorrow. She stands in the darkness, shaking, unable to move. An hour, maybe 2. It's starting to get light outside. She still can't bring herself to do it. She hides her bag in the back of the closet again and goes to bed, Feeling defeated and miserable, Dawn finds her awake, filled with shame for her cowardice. It's morning. Mark leaves for work first. He doesn't even kiss her goodbye, just slams the door. Elaine is left alone in the quiet apartment. She goes to the bathroom to get ready for work. She turns on the light and sees her reflection. Her face is pale, with deep, dark circles under her eyes. Her eyes are wide open, frozen in a mute, animalistic terror. It's the look of a cornered creature who no longer hopes for salvation. It's the look she's seen in the mirror every morning for the past few months. But today, she sees it for real. This look tells her, if you stay today, tomorrow the same thing will appear in the mirror. And the day after tomorrow. And always. She closes her eyes, breathes, remembers Young-ho's nod, his direct question, his plan. He didn't make her empty promises. He simply gave her an option. She opens her eyes. The look in the mirror is still full of fear. But now there's something else there. A spark, faint but real. Determination. She quickly, almost running, goes to the closet and pulls out her bag. She doesn't think anymore. She just acts. She puts on her coat, throws her bag over her shoulder, leaves the apartment, and locks the door. On the street, she doesn't go to the bus stop. She raises her hand and hails a taxi, the first one that pulls up. "Where to?" the driver asks. She gives the address of the Hotel Corso. Her voice does not tremble. The car starts moving. She doesn't look back at her house. She looks ahead. At the hotel, she doesn't go to her office. She goes straight up to Suite 401. She knocks. An assistant opens the door. He sees her, sees the bag in her hand. His face doesn't express surprise. He steps aside, letting her in. Jung-ho stands in the middle of the room. He looks at her, then at his watch. She arrived an hour early. "Okay," he says simply. "Your room is ready." The assistant takes her bag. Jung-ho hands her the keycard. "Room 207, registered under the name Clara Evans. Here, in this hotel. You don't need to go anywhere. No one will look for you here. You continue to work as usual. No one except Mrs. Clark and us knows about the staff room change. As far as everyone is concerned, you still live at your old address." Elena takes the key. Her fingers are cold. "Quote 0, she whispers. He nods. Quote 1. No unnecessary questions. No reproaches for yesterday's indecision. Just facts and action. This is not a warm welcome. This is an effective operation. And right now, that's exactly what she needs. Absolute, emotionless security. The new room is small, but clean and private. No one will enter without knocking. No one will shout from the next room. The silence is deafening at first. Work on the archives continues as if nothing happened. It's her anchor now, her excuse for staying late at the hotel. One day, while sorting through the oldest box, she stumbles upon a leather-bound photo album. She already knows it's best not to touch personal belongings, but the album is half open. The yellowed photograph depicts two children, a boy of about 10, serious, wearing a formal shirt. Next to him is a girl of about 8. She has long black hair and a large white bow. They both look at the camera, but only the boy smiles, and only slightly. The girl's eyes are large, very dark, and sad. Not childishly sad. There's a certain vulnerability in her pose, in the way she holds her brother's hand. Elena recognizes the boy as Chung-ho, so she's his sister. She quickly turns the page, feeling like she's intruding on someone else's life. But the image of the girl with sad eyes stays with her. The next day, Young-ho's assistant, Jin, brings her coffee to her room. He's usually quiet, but today he lingers at the door. "He didn't tell you why?" Jin suddenly asks, his English slightly accented. Elaine looks at him, not understanding. "Why is he helping you?" Jin asks, looking a little worried. She shakes her head. Jin lowers his voice, even though they're alone in the room. "He had a sister, a younger one. Have you seen the photo?" Elaine nods. "Her husband was a bad man. Like yours." Mr. Jong was young, busy with business, thought it was none of his business, that she could handle it, or ask for help. Jin pauses, his face darkening. She didn't ask, until it was too late. She's gone. Elaine stops breathing. "He didn't help back then," Jean says quietly. "He considers it his biggest mistake, his fault. Now he's helping you, and others, through the foundation, to make it right, so that it wasn't in vain." Jean nods quickly and leaves, leaving Elaine alone with this hard, honest truth. Now all the pieces fall into place. Cold efficiency. The security question. The newspaper article about the foundation. his sister with sad eyes. This isn't a game. This is redemption. 2 days after her escape, the hotel's main line starts ringing. Mrs. Clark summons Elaine to her office. Elena, there's a man who keeps calling, the manager says, frowning. He introduces himself as your uncle. He says you're not answering your landline and that he's worried. He's very persistent, almost rude. Elaine goes cold. Mark, he's looking for her. We had some minor disagreements in the family, she says with difficulty. I wouldn't want to talk to him. At that moment, the office door opens. Chung-ho enters. He seems to have just been passing by. He hears the last phrase. He looks at Mrs. Clark. If Mrs. Clark doesn't want to take personal calls at work, that's her right. Instruct your operators. All calls for her are to go through you, and only for work-related matters. Do you understand? His tone brooks no argument. Mrs. Clark, blushing slightly, nods. Of course, Mr. L. Chung-ho glances at Elena briefly. Everything is under control, and leaves. The order has been given. The wall is erected. Another day later, in the evening, when Elaine is about to go down to her room after working with the archives, Jean stops her in the elevator. It's best not to go out the main entrance, he says quietly. He's in there. Who? But she knows the answer herself. That man. He's standing across the street, looking at the entrance. For hours. Mark found her. Somehow he figured out she was here. Maybe he followed her? Maybe he guessed? It doesn't matter. He's here. He's waiting. Panic, old and familiar, grips her throat. She's safe inside the hotel, but he knows where she is. He can wait a day, 2, a week. He can try to break in. Her safe haven suddenly doesn't seem so safe anymore. The walls are still secure, but a shadow has already fallen across the threshold. Jean escorts Elaine to her room, through the service elevator, and the back entrance. He doesn't leave her alone. Stay here. Don't open the door. Mr. L will handle this, he says, his voice not its usual neutrality, but one of firm confidence. Elena can't sit still. She goes to the small window in her room, which overlooks the hotel's courtyard. She can't see anything from there. She listens to the silence. Every minute feels like an hour. Young-ho doesn't show up. He doesn't come to comfort her. He just acts. 20 minutes later, Jean knocks on the door. Elaine throws the door open. Quote 3, quote 4, she says, her voice shaking. After a moment's pause, Jin nods. He leads her into a small utility room next to the reception area, where a monitor displays a CCTV camera. The black and white screen shows part of the street in front of the hotel. First, she sees Mark. He's standing with his hands in his jacket pockets, looking at the front doors. His posture is tense, angry. He looks like a predator at the entrance to a den. Then Young-ho appears on the screen. He leaves the hotel alone. He doesn't look back. He walks straight toward Mark. He's wearing his usual dark suit, no coat. Mark notices him, and his posture shows his wariness. Jong-ho approaches him, almost touching him. They stand face to face. Mark is taller and broader in the shoulders, but Jong-ho doesn't retreat an inch. The conversation is impossible to hear. There's no sound on the screen. They speak briefly, maybe a minute. Young-ho says something, looking Mark straight in the eye. He doesn't gesture. His face on the screen seems like a stone mask. Mark initially says something in response, his face contorted into an angry grimace. But then, as Jung-ho continues speaking, his expression changes. Anger gives way to wariness, then to distrust, and finally to something resembling cold, pure fear. He turns pale, visible even in the black and white image. He takes a step back. Jong-ho says one last thing. He doesn't raise his voice. He just speaks. Then he turns his back on Mark and walks calmly, evenly back into the hotel. He doesn't even look back to check for a reaction. Mark stands there for a few more seconds. He watches Jung-ho walk away. Then his shoulders slump. He turns abruptly and practically runs down the street, disappearing from the camera's view. Jin turns off the monitor. See? It's over. But for Elaine, it's not over. Something momentous just happened. Something that made Mark, so powerful and formidable in her world, turn pale and run away. And she doesn't know what it was. She can't find peace. The horror of Mark being so close mixes with a burning curiosity and a new, strange anxiety. What could Jung-ho have said? What could he have known that frightened Mark so? She waits, but Jung-ho doesn't come to her. That evening, during their usual archival work session, he shows up in the suite as if nothing had happened. He sits down at his desk and opens his laptop. Everything is as usual. Elaine can't take it anymore. She can't concentrate on the papers. Finally, she looks up. Mr. Elland? He looks up from the screen. What? What did you tell him? Her voice is quiet, but in the silence of the room, the words seem loud. Jong-ho looks at her for a few seconds. His face is expressionless. It doesn't matter. It's important to me, she insists, and for the first time in a long time, her voice sounds not timid but demanding. He was here. He found me. I need to know if he's gone forever or just lying low. Jung-ho pushes the laptop away. He folds his hands on the table. He won't come back. To you. To this hotel. To your old life. You can be sure of that. But how? How can you be so sure? Her fear is now directed not at Mark, but at this impenetrable certainty. What did he do? What did he threaten? I gave him the information, Jung-ho says in a flat, dispassionate tone, as if explaining the structure of the report. And a choice. A very simple choice. He chose to leave. He's not stupid. He understands the consequences. Elaine insists. Jung-ho looks at her again. She sees not a threat in his eyes, but something like weary determination. One he wouldn't want to see fall into the hands of the police, or his employers, or his family. Everyone has pressure points. I found his. He pauses, letting her understand. It wasn't violence, he adds, as if reading her darkest thoughts. It was a business transaction. Facts in exchange for your peace of mind. He accepted the deal. Elena digests this silently. He's dug up something on Mark, compromising information, and he's threatened to make it public. It sounds cold, cruel, and incredibly effective. This isn't a knight in shining armor saving the lady. This is a strategist neutralizing the threat. Why? She asks again, but in a different tone. Why did you get so involved in this? It's a risk for you. Jong-ho looks away. He stares out the window at the city lights. A faint, barely perceptible shadow of something long ago appears on his face. Quote 3. He's lying again. Or maybe not the whole truth. She remembers Jin's words about his sister. She sees that shadow in his eyes now. He's helping her because he didn't help her then. It's not mercy, it's duty. Correcting an old, irreparable mistake. And there's a cruel honesty to it. He stands up, signaling the end of the conversation. You don't have to fear him anymore. That's a fact. Accept it and move on. He returns to work. Elaine looks at his profile, bent over his papers. He's no hero. He's a man with a burden and his own methods, but he kept his word. He did what seemed impossible. He made her nightmare simply walk away, pale. And now, in this quiet room, for the first time in years, she truly has a chance to breathe freely. The fear hasn't gone away yet. It's too deep. But above it, there's something new. A shaky, improbable hope. For the first few days in her new apartment, Elena lives in a state of numbness. She wakes in the middle of the night to silence. She listens for footsteps outside the door that aren't there. She cooks dinner and is surprised to realize she can eat whatever she wants, whenever she wants. It's a studio on the 4th floor of an old but well-maintained building. The window overlooks a quiet courtyard with a single tree. It's small, but it's hers. No one disturbs it. She slowly fills it with herself. She buys the one cup that she likes best. She hangs a poster of the ocean she finds at the corner store on the wall. Every decision, no matter how small, feels like a breath of fresh air. She continues to work at the Hotel Corso. But now, everything is different. She doesn't count the minutes until the end of the day. She calmly does her job and leaves. Sometimes she even stays for coffee with Jessica from the reception. Their conversations are light, about movies, the weather. No one asks about her bruises. No one looks at her with pity. She begins to take evening walks. Just like that, without the fear that someone is waiting for her and angry. She notices the smell of the air after the rain. She sees children playing in the park. The world, once a gray and hostile backdrop to her fear, gradually fills with color and detail. The fear hasn't gone away yet. Sometimes she catches herself turning sharply at a sound, or freezing if someone follows her too quickly. But it's no longer a constant companion. It's an echo, growing fainter with each passing day. For the first time in years, she begins to breathe deeply, and this feeling of freedom is frightening in its novelty, almost as frightening as Mark's anger had been before. Almost. Jung-ho remains in the city for another 2 weeks after the incident with Mark. Their work meetings continue, but now they lack the tense undertones. The archives are almost sorted. On his last day at the hotel, he calls Elena to his suite. All the boxes are packed and ready to go. A job well done, Miss Clark, he says, his voice still devoid of emotion. The contract is complete. He hands her an envelope. It contains the final payment. The amount is more than the agreed-upon amount. She looks at him, wanting to say something, but the words stick in her throat. He places another item on the table next to the envelope, a simple business card. It has a first name, last name, and phone number. Underneath the name is written, Lawyer, Family Law, Stalking Defense. If you have any problems, says Jong-ho, pointing to the card with his chin, this person knows your situation. He'll help you if anything happens. Don't be shy. He doesn't say goodbye or good luck. He provides a tool, a safety net. He closes his involvement in her life, but leaves the door ajar for professional help. Elaine finally squeezes out, for everything. He nods, briefly and matter-of-factly. You're welcome. It was work. He turns to the window, signaling the end of the conversation. She takes the envelope and business card and leaves. In the hallway, she stops, leaning against the wall. The chapter is closed. He is leaving. Their paths part. She should feel relief, and she does. But with it comes a strange emptiness. He was the catalyst for her escape, her strangest and most terrifying hope. And now that part of her life is over. The next day, she learns from Mrs. Clark that Mr. L has moved out. Suite 401 is empty, awaiting a new guest. Moving into a new apartment takes only a couple of hours. Elaine has few belongings. She's glad about that. She takes out her old work bag to put the last few small items from her desk into it. At the bottom, in the far corner, her fingers encounter something hard and smooth. She pulls out an object. It's the same glossy black bottle of expensive concealer, the one she threw in the street trash can. But no, it can't be the same one. She threw it out herself. She looks at the bottle. It's clean, new. Or was it just wiped down well? No, it's definitely different. Same brand, same shade. She opens it. Inside, rolled into a small tube, lies a piece of paper. She pulls it out with trembling fingers. There are no words on paper, only 10 digits. A mobile number. She sits down on the floor among the boxes and looks at the number. It's not the lawyer's number from the business card. She's already memorized that one. These are different numbers. Who put it in her bag? And when? Only Jin could have done it. Or he himself. Perhaps while she was packing her hotel room to move here. Quote 0. Was the first note a cruel game or a clumsy attempt to help? Now, looking at these numbers, she realizes it was the latter. And this is his last, most silent gesture. Not an official lawyer's business card for everyone, but a personal number, just in case, just numbers. She doesn't write this number down in her phone. She simply looks at it, memorizing it. Then she carefully places the paper back in the bottle and screws the cap on. She puts it in the top drawer of her dresser, under her socks. Not as an essential item, but as an artifact. A reminder that in the darkest moment, a helping hand can come from the most unexpected place, and that this help can come with its own complex price. Elena no longer works at the Corso Hotel. 3 months after Chung-ho's departure, she found a new job at a small accounting firm in the city center. She was recommended by a lawyer whose business card was left with her. She interviewed and got the job. Now she has her own small office with a window. Her colleagues respect her for her attentiveness and calm demeanor. She's no longer a silent type. She participates in discussions, sometimes even cracking jokes. Her voice has gained strength. She signed up for an evening finance course. She wants to grow. She has a plan she's building herself. Sometimes in the evenings, she meets up with a couple of colleagues. They go to the movies or to quiet cafes. She's learned to laugh out loud without looking over her shoulder. She never saw Mark again. Not once. His shadow had completely vanished. At first, she waited for him to appear. But weeks turned into months, and anticipation gave way to certainty. Chan, Ho's word proved stronger than steel. That old fear now seems like a dream. Unpleasant, sticky, but very distant. She almost forgot the feeling of constant trembling in her hands, almost forgot the taste of fear at dinner. Almost. The annual regional conference on hotel finance and management. The company's management sends Elaine there as a promising employee. She stands in a spacious conference room at a luxury hotel, wearing a badge and holding a clipboard. She's wearing an elegant dark blue suit. Her hair hangs loosely over her shoulders. She's listening to a presentation, taking notes. She feels at home here. During her break, she heads to the coffee counter. She pours a drink into a paper cup and turns away to find a quiet spot, and sees him. Jong-ho stands 10 meters away, talking to a group of important-looking men in expensive suits. He looks almost identical. His suit is impeccable, his posture composed. But there's an even greater confidence in his demeanor, if that's possible. He ends the conversation, nods to his interlocutors, and casually turns his head. His gaze glides around the room and stops on her. He looks at her for a second, too. She doesn't look away. She doesn't hide her face. She just stands there, holding her coffee cup. And then something happens she's never seen before. The corners of his mouth lift. A small but real smile appears on his face. It's not wide, not pretentious. It's simply there. A smile of recognition. A smile that holds approval. He doesn't see the frightened girl from the staff restroom. He sees a confident woman in a business suit, looking at the world directly. And this view seems to bring him satisfaction. He nods at her, barely noticeable. She nods back, just slightly. No words, no gestures, just a silent acknowledgement that they've both changed. She's not looking to meet him, but fate, or the layout of the conference room, has other plans. An hour later, she goes out into the hotel's small, inner garden to take a break from the stuffy heat. He's already sitting there at one of the tables, alone, checking his phone. He looks up. Leaving now would be awkward. She approaches. "Miss Clark," he says. "Mr. L," she replies. "Will you sit down?" He points to the chair opposite. She sits down. Between them is a small table and a year of silence. "Coffee?" he offers, pointing to his unfinished cup. "Thank you, I have one." She holds up hers. There's a pause, but it's not tense. It's quiet. Quote, "Two?" he asks finally. His voice is calm. This isn't an interrogation. It's a formality. Closing the subject. She shakes her head. "No, not even once." "Thank you." "You're welcome," he replies automatically, just like he did then. But then he adds, looking past her, into the greenery of the garden. "You look good." Confident. "I feel good," she says. And that's the honest truth. He looks at her, and for the first time in their strange acquaintance, she sees in his eyes not cold calculation, not detachment, not the shadow of past guilt. She sees peace, the quiet, deep peace of a man who has done what he had to do, who has seen that his actions have borne good fruit. The burden on his shoulders, if not lifted entirely, has become lighter. They finish their coffee in silence. They have nothing more to say to each other. Their story is over. She is a free woman, building her own life. He is a man who has found the ability to help and can now move on. He stands up first. "I have to go. Good luck, Miss Clark. And to you too, Mr. L." He leaves. She sits for a few more minutes, feeling the warm sunlight on her face. She is free, truly free. And he, her strange, silent savior, has finally found his peace. Their paths have diverged, but each leads to a bright, peaceful future. And this is the best ending she could have dreamed of. She sits in the garden for a few more minutes, letting the warmth of the sun and the silence fill her completely. A clock chimes somewhere in the building, reminding her of the next session. Elena stands, throws away her cup, and returns to the conference room. Her step is light. In the evening, returning to her small apartment, she feels not the exhaustion of a bright day, but a pleasant tiredness. She turns on the light, takes off her shoes, and puts down her bag. Her gaze falls on the dresser, on that very top drawer. She approaches, opens it, and pushes aside the folded socks. The black bottle lies where it has been all this time. She picks it up, feeling the coolness of the smooth glass. She opens the lid and shakes a folded piece of paper into her palm. 10 digits. She never dialed them, and she never intended to. Now she understands that this number was not so much for her as for him, his final gateway, his way of preserving the ability to check if everything was all right, an insurance policy for his own peace of mind. Seeing her today, confident and calm, he probably realized there would be no call, and he seemed glad about that. Elena carefully tears the paper into small pieces and throws it in the trash. She holds the bottle in her hands for a moment, then throws it in the trash as well. She no longer needs it, concealer to hide the bruises, and she no longer needs this artifact of the past. She closes the lid of the bucket. Now it's just trash. Working at the new firm requires increasing involvement. Her boss, Mr. Dawson, an older man with a sharp mind, begins assigning her more complex projects, not just balancing balance sheets, but analyzing the financial risks of small companies seeking investment. One day, he calls her into his office. "Elaine, look at this." He hands her a folder. "Small coffee shop chain, expanding. Their records look too perfect. What do you think?" She picks up the folder. Previously, she would have simply checked the numbers for consistency. Now she looks differently. She looks for discrepancies not in the columns, but in the history. Why are rent expenses so high this quarter? Why the sudden jump in revenue this month? She recalls the lessons of silence and observation she inadvertently learned in Suite 401, the ability to see what lies beneath the surface. 2 days later, she presents her findings to Mr. Dawson. Not just dry numbers, but a coherent narrative, likely cost-inflating schemes, signs of landlord pressure in one area. Her analysis is precise and unbiased. Mr. Dawson looks at her with interest. Excellent. Profound. You sensed it. This job requires not only an accountant's eye, but also a nose. You have it. She's been promoted. Now she has her own small team of 2 interns. She teaches them not only how to fill out spreadsheets, but also how to ask the right questions. She's patient. She remembers what it's like to be afraid to ask a question. Sometimes, passing by the Hotel Corso on business, she catches herself thinking about taking a peek inside. But she doesn't go inside. That's the past. However, one day she runs into Jessica, her former colleague from reception, in the cafe. Jessica now works at a larger hotel. Quote zero. Jessica hugs her. They chat about nothing, and then Jessica, lowering her voice, says, quote 1. Elena smiled. It wasn't strange to her. It was another step, another gesture that closed the loop. He thanked them for their silent service, of which she was a part. Everything was clean, neat, correct. Yes, says Elaine. He was very correct. Personal space. Her personal life is slowly but surely becoming less of a wasteland. She's not looking for a relationship. The scars are too fresh. But she's learning to trust again. Not in people right away, but in the space that surrounds her. She buys a sofa. Small, soft, sea green. She reads on it in the evenings. She gets a plant, an easy-to-grow succulent, in a clay pot. She learns to care for it, not overwatering it and providing it with light. A coworker, Michael from the IT department, sometimes drops by her office with a report question. He's shy, with kind eyes. One day, he tentatively asks if she'd like to go to a photography exhibition that's open nearby. He has 2 tickets. She feels the familiar spasm of fear inside, but he's different. He doesn't push. He doesn't demand. He simply offers. And to her own surprise, she says, yes, why not? They go to an exhibition. They talk about art, about work, about the city. He walks her home. He doesn't try to come in. He simply says, it was very nice, and leaves. She stands at the door of her apartment, feeling not fear, but a slight, unfamiliar excitement. It doesn't oppress. It's simply there, like the scent of something new, unknown, but no longer scary. Jong Ho Lee, back in Seoul, doesn't return to his previous routine. Things are going as usual, but he makes adjustments. He increases funding for the New Dawn Foundation and begins personally reviewing some difficult cases. Not all, just the ones that remind him of Elena's case, his sister's case. He doesn't become sentimental, he becomes more focused. His cold efficiency is now focused on a specific, personal mission. He hires the best lawyers and psychologists. He builds a system of assistance that works quickly and quietly, like an operation. Sometimes, late at night after sitting in his office, he puts down his papers and looks out the dark window. The face in his reflection no longer bears the imprint of constant, unspoken guilt. It is calm. He hasn't forgotten his sister. He's simply found a way to live with that memory without letting it consume him. By helping others, he's paying his debt not to the world, but to himself. And this brings him a quiet, deep satisfaction. He no longer thinks about Elaine Clark every day. But sometimes, when the foundation reports on a success story, a woman found a job, a family secured housing, he remembers her eyes in the conference room garden. Confident, calm. And that reminder is more effective than any report. Another 6 months pass. Elaine is sent on a week-long business trip to another city to conduct an audit at a partner company. This is a sign of high trust. On her last evening, tired but satisfied with a job well done, she decides to have dinner not at the hotel, but at a small but cozy restaurant with local cuisine that was recommended to her. She's sitting at a table by the window, scrolling through a report on her tablet and sipping wine. The door opens, letting in a blast of cool evening air. A group of businessmen enter, and he's among them. Their gazes meet across the room. This time, there's no surprise in his eyes, only a light, almost ironic understanding of the randomness of existence. He says something to his companions and heads toward her table. he says. She replies, putting away her tablet. May I? He points to an empty chair. Quote 2. He sits down, not like back then, in the suite, at the huge table, but as an equal, a business partner, met by chance on the road. Quote 3, he asks. Quote 4, quote 5. He pauses, looking at her more closely. Quote 6. She understands what he means. Not just quote 7, but confident, organic. Quote 8, she says simply. The waiter approaches. Jung-ho orders only water. Quote 9, quote 10. They sit in silence for a minute. There's zero tension. Just two people who shared a crucial dark stretch of the journey, and now peacefully meet at the bright station. Your foundation, she says suddenly. I read the annual report in a business review. You're doing important work. He nods. It's just a job. She smiles. Now she knows it's not, quote 14, but she doesn't argue. She understands his language. I'm glad things worked out this way, she says, meaning everything. Her escape, his help, her current life, his peace. Me too, he replies. And it seems like the most personal and revealing thing he's ever said to her. He stands up. I need to get back to my colleagues. Good luck with the audit. Good luck with the merger. He goes back to his table. She finishes her wine, looks out the window at the city lights at night. She no longer feels the need to look back. Forward, yes, forward, where new projects await, perhaps new people, new discoveries. But behind her, there is no fear, no unresolved questions. Only the fact. She made it. She pays the bill and steps outside. The air is fresh. She wraps herself in her coat and strolls slowly toward her hotel. She is free, not in flight, but in movement. And this feeling is the most precious thing she has now. It belongs only to her, and she will never let anyone take it away from her. Another year passes. Elena doesn't transform into a different person, but subtle changes become a part of her. She buys a larger apartment, a bright two-room apartment with a balcony. The move isn't an escape, but a conscious choice. She chooses furniture, hangs shelves, and adds another plant. The process is unhurried, filled only with her desires. Michael from IT becomes a constant part of her life. Their relationship develops slowly, as if both are afraid of disturbing something fragile. He respects her silence, her need for personal space. He never asks about what happened before. He simply is, reliable, calm, one of us. One Saturday morning, they're having breakfast on her new balcony. The sun warms her back. Elena watches Michael feed a sparrow from her hand, which has become accustomed to them. She feels not a surge of joy, but a deep, quiet happiness. It doesn't overwhelm her. It simply fills her from within, like light flooding a room through an open window. At work, she's appointed head of a small but important department. At the first team meeting, she speaks simply and clearly. They listen to her. She's no longer the girl who hid her face. She's a respected specialist. Sometimes, very rarely, on a particularly busy day, or when she hears raised in the street voices, an old fear tries to stir somewhere deep inside. But now she has the tools to calm it. She takes a deep breath, feels the solid floor beneath her feet, looks around, at her apartment, at the photo with Michael, at the diploma from the advanced training course. She reminds herself, this is now. That was then, and then it will never happen again. She lives, not in spite of it, but simply living it. Each day is not a challenge to the past, but a natural movement forward. And in this ordinary life, filled with simple tasks, she finds that very true freedom for which she once, trembling with terror, packed her bag and got into a taxi. The freedom to be herself, to simply be.